Hello, my garden friends. This is Jersey Shore Lisa from MyNJGarden.com, and I wanted to show you another one of my front yard food forest. And I'll just give you a little pan of what that's looking like in May 2021. But I wanted to show you another deep dive into one of my beds, which is a permaculture guild that I've arranged and planted together. Now, in a food forest, there are layers. There's a canopy layer and an understory layer and a shrub layer and an herbaceous layer, and then there's a potential vining layer and a root layer as well. So we can demonstrate some of those layers here. In this case, I have elderberry as my tallest specimen in this guild. And elderberry generally in a true forest situation, at least in the Northeast United States, would be an understory shrub. And I guess if we count this large oak that's very nearby, that would be the canopy layer, because acorns are edible. So there we go. We have elderberry as the understory shrub. That leaves out very early in the spring, and it's doing really well right now. You can see the new growth here, and these are the older canes. They are a fountain shaped. It grows in a fountain shape. So it's a multi-stemmed shrub from a central base, and then these long, fairly straight canes come up from the center, and as you could see, it sends up suckers after it gets established. This elderberry is 5 years old now in this spot. I do cut it back, cut a few canes back every year for the purposes of just keeping it kind of tight and allowing us to walk around the food forest using these pathways. But you can see that it really wants to spread. So it's sending up these root suckers nearby, and you can actually dig those up and pot them up and share them or sell them. They're very easily propagated. So that is either an Adams or a John's variety of elderberry. This elderberry, which is in a nearby bed, was actually a seedling. So it's a very different iteration of an elderberry. This is also 5 years old, but this tops out at about 6 feet tall, where this elderberry is at least 10 or 12 feet tall. So just to let you know that seedlings don't necessarily have the same the same characteristics as their parents do. So this one just tends to be a little shorter, which I'm totally fine with in a front yard situation. But it does make quite a statement in this bed, and the berries are medicinal. You should not eat them raw. They tend to be fairly toxic. They'll upset your stomach. I don't know that they'll hurt you unless you eat a tremendous amount of them, but they will give you an upset stomach if you eat them raw. So you tend to cook them, and people make them into syrups and jellies and gummies and things like that. It is very immune boosting, and they're really delicious. People also make it into wine. It's very delicious. But just stay away from the raw berries. If you're gonna leave them on the bush, leave them for the birds. If you're not gonna cook them. So underneath here, which is the north side of this bed, you could see some daffodils that have done their thing, and the flowers are done. But you can also see a gooseberry, which I just transplanted last year and is already fruiting like crazy. This is in the ribe family, and they are thorny, but there are very few productive plants that fruit well in shady situations. Gooseberry is one of them. So I highly recommend it for shady areas in the food forest. Then there's just this, which I put in early spring. That's an ornamental. I just liked the color very much. It also goes in shady situations, and that's called Huchera, also known as coral bells. So along the bottom of this, as a ground cover layer in the food forest, I have strawberries. This would be a very dense mat of strawberries. It's not. It's fairly patchy because I call this part of the food forest Bunny Run. The rabbits love this area, and they also love strawberry plants. So they come through and mow them down on me. But my strawberries are very happy here, so they tend to recover, albeit slowly. I also have some self-seeded cilantro in this area. It's really migrating from this bed over here with the apple trees. There's a tremendous amount of cilantro along the ground cover on this side, and it's kind of migrated over here, and I'm okay with it because I like cilantro very much. Some people don't, but I do. I also popped in a couple of celery starts. There's one there. The older leaves are the yellower ones on top, and I think it probably had a little bit of cold damage because I put them in fairly early. So they are recovering. The bottom leaves look great and healthy and happy, so I expect them to get nice and big and be fine in this situation. I also have, in the middle of my strawberries, I have comfrey, which is a wonderful addition to an herbaceous layer of the food forest because, as I've mentioned in previous videos, comfrey is a dynamic accumulator. I have very sandy soil, so I use a lot of deep mulch and compost to try and amend that soil. I use it in layers, in sheet mulching kind of situations, but the soil is sandy, so it tends to be nutrient poor. A dynamic accumulator like comfrey has a very deep tap root. It mines nutrients from deep down in the layers of subsoil and brings it up to the surface in its leaves and tissues. It does flower. It's in the borage family, so it does flower, and the pollinators absolutely adore it. So I leave the flowers on. When the flowers are spent, I'll chop and drop all that foliage and flowers and use it as mulch around the garden. You can do it in places where it's really happy. You can do it up to 3 times a season. I'll probably do it once a season because, like I said, my soil is very nutrient poor. I don't want to stress the comfrey that much. I love it when it comes up. It's so lush. So it is productive. Not only is it a useful plant in the garden situation, but it is also a useful plant medicinally for people. It's also known as bone knit, so you can turn it into a poultice and use it on wounds. It's good for healing bones, but it's applied topically. It turns out that it's very high in oxalates, so it's not great for your liver if you actually consume comfrey. Also, we have this guy, and he's fairly new. Last spring, I put him in. That is a serviceberry or a Juneberry, also known as Saskatoon. And that will be a large multi-stemmed shrub that blooms in early spring and gives us berries much like blueberries, but supposedly with kind of an almond flavor. So I'm excited about that. Can't wait for that to start producing. Unfortunately, bunnies love just to chew on the stems of serviceberry. So that's taken a little while to get going, but it looks happy. I think that it's going to be okay. It's going to recover and hopefully it'll get nice and tall. Those shrubs can get around 15 feet high. So that's why he's got plenty of vertical space right in that spot. I'm ready for him to get that tall. I don't know why I'm making that shrub a him, but I just did. So there's this over here is a goji berry. This came from a cutting from a shrub that I have on the other side of the yard. These tend to be kind of low growing, almost vining kind of shrubs, and they can get up to, those vines, branches can get up to 10 feet in length, supposedly. I don't have really a mature one yet, but I know that it's kind of fountain shaped, and you can almost support it with a trellis system if you wanted to. So I'm not sure how this is going to grow. It might compete with the strawberries. We'll see how it goes in this space. But between the elderberry and the serviceberry, I think that is going to have a nice space to spread out and do its thing, and I'll see if I want to prune it a certain way or just let it go and be happy with the strawberries where it is. Goji berry is also known as a wolfberry, and they are in the nightshade family, but it is perennial, and it has berries that are very high in antioxidants, high in vitamin C. I'm not sure that they're delicious out of hand, but I know people do eat them dried and add them to things like trail mixes and stuff like that. So we can also see here, I have this here and this here, that's coneflower, echinacea. So that's very good for the immune system. You can make tea out of it. Pollinators absolutely adore it. So I put it in the food forest for them and to feed my soul, because I think the flowers are so pretty. These are native flowers. They're just coming up this year for the first time. I'm very excited. They're called foam flower, and they're spring blooming. I don't know that I'm going to get blooms this year because they're very new, so maybe next year. They do well in shady situations, and they are great for the local pollinators. So, and then back here in the back, which is also on the north side of the bed, very near the gooseberry over there, this is a red currant, and this bloomed this year. It's very new. It's just a stick, but it's happy, and it's bloomed, and it's already setting fruit. So that red currant is also in the rib family, and it does very well fruiting in shady situations under the canopy of this elderberry plant. So this is my guild for my elderberry and my ribes here in my Ocean County, New Jersey food forest in zone 7A, 6B. I have a few other beds to show you guys, but I just kind of want to do one guild at a time. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments, and if you did, please like the video, and I thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. I'll see you again real soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.